Welcome to a deep dive.
A deep dive into what exactly?
Well, today it's a text that sparked countless conversations, A Course in Miracles.
Ah, classic. And what brings us to this particular deep dive?
You know me, always curious, and our listeners have sent over quite a collection of excerpts this time from the preface, the intro, even the first couple of chapters. So we've got our work cut out for us.
Sounds like quite the spread.
It is, and I'll be honest, this isn't exactly light reading material.
That's true. A Course in Miracles doesn't shy away from profound concepts. But that's part of its allure, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It draws you in, makes you think.
It does make you think. And with this text especially, I find myself drawn back to how these ideas came about in the first place. Its origin story is quite remarkable, even for someone like me who spent years with these concepts.
The background of this text is something I'm eager to delve into, too. What is it about the course's origins that stands out to you?
Imagine, if you will, two individuals working at the same university, colleagues. But here's the catch. They're self-proclaimed skeptics.
Skeptics?
Yes, skeptical, leaning towards atheism even. And yet, it's from this unlikely pairing that A Course in Miracles emerges.
That's certainly an unexpected beginning for a text so focused on spirituality. How did this collaboration even come to be with, as you said, these two skeptics?
It involved a process that Helen Schuckman, one half of this duo, described as inner dictation.
Inner dictation.
She felt compelled to write down what she perceived as an internal voice, almost as if it were dictating the text to her.
Inner dictation. Now that's a story in itself. But for today, let's dive into the words themselves and see what this voice had to say.
Right off the bat, the Course grabs your attention. I mean, that first line is one of the most quoted. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
It's certainly a bold statement.
Bold, maybe even a little confusing at first glance. How do we even begin to unpack that? Where do we start?
You've hit on a fundamental concept within the course right from the start, the distinction between what it calls knowledge and perception.
Okay, knowledge and perception. So two ways of seeing the world.
In essence, yes. Think of knowledge as that unwavering truth, God's reality. It's a realm beyond change, beyond threat. Perception, on the other hand, well, that's our personal subjective experience of the world. It's how we each see things, colored by our individual journeys. So it's like we each have our own filter shaping how we see things, and that filter isn't always accurate.
Precisely. And, as you might imagine, A Course in Miracles suggests our perceptions are often clouded, often distorted by, you guessed it, fear, judgment, this sense of being separate from that ultimate truth, that knowledge.
Okay, so we have knowledge, which is unchanging and true, and perception, which is colored by our individual experiences. But how does this tie back to that bold opening line about nothing real being threatened?
The Course proposes that if we can tap into knowledge, that unchangeable truth, we find a peace that can't be disrupted because it exists outside the realm of our often fearful perceptions.
So it's like rising above the everyday chaos.
In a way, yes. The Course often uses the analogy of a dream to illustrate this.
A dream, that's intriguing. How does that fit in with knowledge and perception?
Think about it. When we're caught up in a dream, it can feel incredibly real, right?
Oh, absolutely. I still wake up sometimes with my heart racing.
Exactly. But ultimately, it's just that, a dream, a projection of our mind. And when we wake up, the fear we felt fades because we recognize that wasn't rooted in actual danger. A Course in Miracles suggests our perceived reality operates in a similar way.
So are you saying our everyday experiences are essentially like one long dream?
It's more nuanced than that. It's not about dismissing our human experience entirely, more like recognizing its limitations. The Course reminds us that our perception, like a dream, isn't always an accurate reflection of a deeper reality.
Okay, so not a dream exactly, but not always. Real, at least not in the way we usually think.
Right, and in that recognition, in seeing that our fears and anxieties are often like phantoms in the night, the Course suggests we can find a path to a more lasting peace.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties together. But if our perceptions are so susceptible to fear and judgment, to these dreamlike distortions, how do we even begin to align with this deeper reality, this knowledge the Course talks about?
That's where the concept of forgiveness takes center stage.
Forgiveness. I have to admit, that word can feel a bit loaded, you know?
Loaded. How so?
Well, it often seems like something we should do, even when it feels difficult or forced, like we're just supposed to get over it.
You're right, forgiveness can definitely carry some baggage. But A Course in Miracles offers a perspective that might feel refreshingly different from that should, from that forcefulness you're describing.
I'm all ears. How does the Course approach forgiveness differently?
It's not about condoning actions or letting someone off the hook, as the saying goes. It's not about saying what happened was okay or that it didn't matter. Instead, it's about choosing to see beyond our limited, often judgment-laden perceptions.
Choosing to see beyond.
Yes, to see beyond those immediate hurts, those knee-jerk reactions, and recognize something deeper. It's about recognizing that we're all connected to that deeper reality of love, that knowledge we were discussing. It's about loosening the grip of those judgments and fears that keep us trapped in those cycles, the ones that keep us from truly experiencing that love.
That makes so much more sense. It's not about forcing ourselves to forgive and forget, but about shifting our perspective, right?
Yeah.
Especially when we're dealing with those difficult situations where forgiveness feels impossible.
Precisely. It reminds me of a passage from the excerpts you shared. Sin is defined as lack of love, a mistake to be corrected, rather than an evil to be punished.
That's from chapter 1, The Meaning of Miracles, right? It really struck me as a different way of thinking about, well, everything, really.
Instead of labeling ourselves or others as inherently bad, the Course encourages us to see those experiences as opportunities for growth, as chances for love to emerge where maybe, just maybe, we didn't see it before.
So, if forgiveness in this context is about correcting our perceptions and recognizing our interconnectedness, where do miracles fit into all of this? I mean, it's hard to even see the title A Course in Miracles and not immediately think of the
And it
miraculous.
certainly wouldn't have the same ring to it without that miracles part, would it?
Exactly. And if we're talking about shifting perceptions, well, I'm ready for some positive change. Sign me up. Though maybe not in the winning the lottery sense.
Perhaps a slight adjustment of expectations is needed when it comes to the Course's definition of miracles.
Okay, so maybe not about instant manifestation then, not about getting that perfect parking spot.
Not quite. A Course in Miracles isn't referring to miracles in the traditional sense, not talking about supernatural events that defy the laws of nature. Instead, it defines miracles as those shifts in perception that bring us closer to knowledge, to that ultimate reality we were discussing.
So, more about changing our inner world than manipulating the outer world. More about how we see than what we see.
You got it. It's about those moments when we can see past the fear, past the separation, and connect with that truth of love and interconnectedness. It's not necessarily about those external circumstances changing, but about our entire experience of those circumstances being transformed.
So instead of looking for a booming voice from the heavens, we can experience miracles in the everyday moments of our lives. That's kind of amazing when you think about it. But you keep using the phrase choosing miracles. Is it really a choice? I mean, sometimes it feels like fear and judgment just show up whether we want them to or not.
You've hit upon a crucial point. A Course in Miracles acknowledges that changing our perception, this choosing of love over fear, is a process. It's a journey, really, of learning and unlearning. And like any journey, it takes effort. It takes consistent practice to stay on course.
Okay, so maybe we can't just snap our fingers and have a miracle appear. But the text itself is called a course. It's suggesting a process and a practice, right? It's suggesting that we can learn this, that we can get better at it.
Exactly. And that's where the workbook comes in. Remember the part you shared about how the Course prioritizes practical application over theoretical knowledge?
Oh, absolutely. It's one thing to talk about these concepts, but actually putting them into practice, that's where the rubber meets the road.
I like that, putting it into practice, because it's in that practice, that doing, that we start to embody these principles. And remember that line from the Manual for Teachers about how a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary.
That's from the Manual for Teachers, right? It's
Yeah.
about how we can all access this, that it's not about some select few who just get it.
Exactly. And the workbook is designed for that, for daily engagement. It's filled with lessons and exercises to help us actually integrate these teachings into our lives. Not just read about them, but live them.
So it's less about passive reading and more about actively training our minds, kind of like a mental workout routine, if you will.
I like that analogy. Because just as with physical exercise, consistency is key. Working with the workbook daily, even for a few minutes at a time, can be more impactful than infrequent longer sessions. It's about gradually shifting those deeply ingrained thought patterns, those habits of mind that keep us stuck.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's unlikely we'll undo years, maybe even lifetimes of ingrained patterns and beliefs overnight, right?
It's a process, a gradual unfolding of replacing those old habits of fear and judgment with new habits of forgiveness and love. And that takes time, it takes patience, and as you said, that consistent practice.
Speaking of practice, and going back to the excerpts for a moment, specifically those sections about miracles from chapter 1, there were a few lines I found really interesting, but I'm not sure I fully grasped them. For instance, there's one about miracles being sudden shifts into invisibility away from the bodily level. What does that even mean?
That's a great question, and it highlights another important aspect of how the Course views miracles. Remember our earlier discussion about the difference between knowledge, which is eternal and unchanging, and perception, which is so rooted in our physical bodily experience.
Yes, and how our perceptions can be like a dream, all influenced by our thoughts and emotions, all tangled up with our physical selves.
Exactly. When the Course refers to miracles as shifts into invisibility, it's suggesting a movement beyond our physical senses, beyond the limits of our ego, into a realm of pure spirit.
So we're stepping out of the dream, so to speak, and into a deeper level of reality, one that's not bound by our physical limitations.
Precisely. And because this deeper reality isn't bound by those limitations of the physical world, it holds a power to heal, to transform, to create miracles that might seem impossible from our usual ego-based perspective.
Okay, I see how this is all connecting. There's another part in the excerpts, though, about miracles being a way of loving your neighbor as yourself. How does that tie into this idea of shifting our perception?
That line so beautifully encapsulates the Course's message about the interconnectedness of all beings. You see, when we experience a miracle, when our perception shifts from fear to love, the impact extends beyond our own individual experience. That love radiates outwards, touching those around
It's
us.
like a ripple effect where our internal shifts create positive change that goes beyond ourselves.
Exactly. The more we cultivate love and forgiveness within ourselves, the more we become channels for miracles to happen. Not just in our own lives, but in the lives of others as well.
That's a really empowering thought. But it also makes me wonder if miracles are these expressions of love that go beyond us, does that mean we don't have any control over them? Like, we can't force a miracle to happen, we can only create the right conditions for it?
That's an insightful question. And honestly, it's one that students of the Course have grappled with for decades. Perhaps the desire for control itself, though, stems from that ego's need to feel separate, to be the one in charge.
So, trying to control miracles could actually be counterproductive, like we're getting in our own way.
It's a possibility. But maybe a more helpful approach is to shift our focus. What if, instead of trying to control miracles, we surrendered to the love that already exists within us? What if we trusted that it will express itself perfectly, in its own time and in its own way?
That's definitely a different perspective, but it feels freeing in a way. It's less about putting pressure on ourselves to make miracles happen and more about aligning with the love that's already there, trusting that it knows what it's doing.
Exactly. That ties into the concept of miracle readiness, which is also highlighted in the excerpts you provided. It's about nurturing a mindset that's open and receptive to miracles, a willingness to see the world through the lens of love, even, and maybe especially, when it's tough to do so.
So, if we can cultivate this miracle readiness, does that mean we're more likely to experience miracles in our lives?
The Course suggests that when we align ourselves with love, when we cultivate that inner space of receptivity, we become more attuned to its presence in everything. And miracles, they become a natural expression of that alignment.
It feels like so much of what we've been talking about today, so much of what makes A Course in Miracles so unique, circles back to that idea, the power of love to transform our experience.
It's true. It's that shift from fear to love.
Yeah.
And it's not just a feel-good sentiment in this Course. It's presented as the key to unlocking those miracles.
It's about changing how we see, which then changes how we experience everything.
Exactly. It's about dismantling that perception of separation. Really recognizing our shared essence, our interconnectedness with each other, and with that ultimate reality, that knowledge, which is love.
And that's where the real work of A Course in Miracles comes in, right? Because it's not a passive read. It's an active process of recognizing those fear-based perceptions and then in that moment, choosing a more loving perspective.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a continual practice, a conscious choice we make, and sometimes we make it over and over and over again.
It's like that line from the workbook excerpt, the one about how a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible but necessary. To really grasp the essence of A Course in Miracles, it's about embodying its teachings, not just understanding them intellectually.
Absolutely. It's in the day-to-day application, putting these principles into practice, even in the smallest of ways. That's where we truly begin to transform our experience.
Which brings us back to that idea of miracle readiness, right?
Mhm.
If we're constantly approaching life from a place of fear, of judgment, those miracles, those shifts in perception, they're less likely to occur.
Precisely. It's about cultivating that inner space, that receptivity, where love can flow more freely, where we're open to seeing the possibility even in the midst of challenges, even when it seems like there's no way through.
And to remember that miracles, well, they aren't always these grand, sweeping events that change everything in an instant. Sometimes a miracle is just that quiet moment of choosing love over fear, forgiveness over judgment.
Beautifully said. Because
Yeah.
those moments, those are the seeds of miracle readiness. And as we nurture those seeds, they have the power to blossom in extraordinary ways.
It's like that line from the Course about how this is a beginning, not an end. The journey of A Course in Miracles, it isn't about reaching some final destination. It's about continually opening ourselves up to a new way of seeing and experiencing the world.
Exactly. And on that journey, there's always more to discover, more to learn, and even more to embody.
It's been quite a journey, even just exploring these excerpts today, and I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface of what A Course in Miracles offers.
It's a text meant to be revisited and lived, with each encounter offering new layers of understanding. Like a conversation with a dear friend, you pick up right where you left off, and yet there's always something new to discover.
So for someone listening who's feeling called to dive deeper, what would you say is the most important thing to remember about A Course in Miracles?
That's a beautiful question. And if there's just one takeaway I could offer, one thing to hold on to, it's this. You already possess everything you need to experience the peace, the love, the miracles that the Course speaks of. It's not about adding anything new. It's about peeling back the layers of fear, the layers of judgment, to reveal the truth of who you are. An expression of love, worthy of peace, and capable of experiencing miracles.
That is a beautiful thought to leave us with. And for our listener, as you navigate your own journey, remember that you're not alone in this. A Course in Miracles offers a map, an invitation to experience the world and yourself anew.
Beautifully said. Until next time, may your journey be filled with the peace and joy of recognizing the miracles that are always present, both within you and in the world all around you.